He pointed at me like I was a stranger. In front of everyone. That night, the chandelier light hit his face just enough for me to see it. Cold, certain, proud. My father's voice didn't tremble when he said it. She's the reason we lost everything. Every sound in the dining room vanished after that. Even the clinking of silverware stopped. My name, Elena, hung in the air like a curse no one dared to touch. My stepmother Lydia lowered her eyes, pretending to be shocked. My stepbrother Noah folded his arms, almost smiling.
And
I sat there, frozen, trying to understand how a father could destroy his own daughter's name to protect someone else's lie. I remember staring at the polished table, watching my reflection blur with tears I refused to let fall. I had always believed silence was the highest form of respect. But that night, silence became my punishment. No one stood for me, not even the ones who once swore they loved me. And as my father's words echoed in that room, something inside me broke, not my heart, but my fear. Because that was the moment I decided I would never let them speak for me again. I grew up believing that in our house, love had a price, and it was always paid in silence. From the outside, the Marsh family looked perfect. My father, Richard Marsh, was a respected businessman who valued appearances more than peace. My stepmother Lydia was the picture of elegance, the kind of woman who could smile sweetly while cutting you open with her words. My stepbrother Noah, her only son, was the star of every family story, the one who could do no wrong. And then there was me, the reminder of the woman my father loved before Lydia came into our lives. I was 12 when Lydia moved in, carrying perfume, pearls, and a promise to make this family whole again. But even then I understood I was not part of that promise. At dinners, my seat was always slightly away from the center. Lydia would laugh with Noah and father, her bracelets jingling as if to drown out my silence. When I spoke, she'd nod politely and change the subject. Once, during a family gathering, she said softly, "Elena has such quiet energy. It's admirable how she never demands attention." Father smiled. She's her mother's daughter, modest. But I could hear the undertone, invisible, forgettable. Still, I tried. I helped manage the family boutique while Noah pursued his big ideas that never worked out. I worked late, skipped outings, and learned to smile even when no one noticed. Every month, I'd bring father the reports, hoping he'd say he was proud. He'd glance through them, mutter a quick "good," and call Noah in to discuss his future. It hurt, but I told myself that love just takes time. That maybe if I proved myself useful, they'd see me. The illusion of unity was strongest during family celebrations. Birthdays, anniversaries, holiday dinners, all carefully staged for photos and gossip columns. Lydia loved those moments when her perfect family could be admired by the world. She'd link arms with father and announce, "We're blessed truly. A family that stands together through everything." And I'd stand beside her, smiling on cue, wondering if she even remembered that I was the one keeping the accounts in order, paying the overdue suppliers she never mentioned. Grandma Eleanor used to tell me, "Respect isn't about who's loudest, child. It's about who stands with you when no one else will." But Grandma was getting old, and her words didn't echo as loudly as Lydia's whispers. Then one evening, as I closed the boutique, I overheard two suppliers talking outside. "Did you hear? Mr. Marsh might sell the business. Heard his daughter messed up the books." My heart stopped. "Which daughter?" one asked. "The quiet one," the other replied. "Elena." I stood there in the dark, the sound of their voices cutting through me like glass. That night, when I came home, Lydia was waiting by the staircase, smiling faintly. "Rough day?" she asked, her tone dripping with sympathy. I just nodded. But in her eyes, I saw it, a spark of satisfaction. That was the moment I knew. Something was shifting in this family. Something dark, and it had already begun. It started with a whisper, but in our house, whispers traveled faster than truth. After that night outside the boutique, the rumor that I had mishandled funds began to spread, quietly at first, then openly. Lydia made sure of it. She never accused me directly. She was smarter than that. She would sigh dramatically at breakfast, stirring her tea with that delicate silver spoon, and murmur things like, "Some people just aren't ready for responsibility." Father would look up from his newspaper, frown slightly, and say nothing. But I could feel his faith in me fading, one silence at a time. When the boutique's numbers started dipping, not because of me, but because Noah's side projects kept draining the budget, Lydia pounced. At the next family meeting, she spoke in that calm, honeyed tone she used when delivering poison. "Richard," she said, touching his hand gently, "I hate to bring this up, but there are inconsistencies in the boutique's finances. I'm worried Elena might be overwhelmed." I looked up sharply. "What inconsistencies?" "I've been the only one keeping it afloat." Noah chuckled under his breath. "Come on, Elena. You don't even have a degree in business. Maybe it's time to let someone with real experience take over." I clenched my fists under the table. "Real experience? You mean your failed online venture?" Father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. I don't care who's right. This is embarrassing. I'll review the accounts myself." He never did. Days later, I discovered someone had accessed the boutique's computer system using my credentials. Transactions had been edited, amounts changed, invoices deleted. I knew immediately it was Noah. He had the access codes. But when I told Father, he didn't even look at me. "Stop blaming your brother," he said. "He's been helping me manage things while you focus on emotions." Focus on emotions. That's what he thought of me. A fragile girl with feelings, not facts. At the next family dinner, Lydia invited a few close friends, people from Father's business circle. I was there, seated across from Noah. Lydia smiled and said casually, "It's unfortunate about the boutique, but we can't expect everyone to have a head for numbers." Their guests laughed politely. I felt my face burn. "Maybe," I said quietly, "we shouldn't discuss private matters at the table." Lydia tilted her head, feigning surprise. "Oh, dear, I didn't mean to upset you. It's just your father's under so much stress. Losing money is hard on him." I looked at Father, waiting for him to defend me. But he didn't. He just sighed and said, "Let's not make a scene." A scene. That's what my humiliation was to him. A distraction. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every moment, every smirk, every lie disguised as concern. I started digging through the boutique's files, desperate to find something to clear my name. That's when I noticed it. One transfer, dated 3 months ago, sent to a company I'd never heard of, LM Consulting. The initials hit me like a slap. Lydia Marsh. The next morning, I confronted her in the hallway. "You moved money from the boutique to your own account," I said. Her smile didn't falter. "Careful, Elena. Accusations like that can ruin what little reputation you have left." "I have proof," I whispered. "Then show it," she said sweetly. "Let's see who Father believes, his daughter or his wife." I froze, because I already knew the answer. Later that evening, Father called a meeting. His voice was cold, rehearsed. "I've decided Noah will take over the boutique. Elena, you'll step back for now." I stared at him. "You're taking everything I built and handing it to him?" Lydia put a hand on his arm. "Richard, maybe she needs rest. She's clearly emotional." Something inside me cracked. "Emotional?" I shouted. "You're stealing from him, and I'm the emotional one?" Father's expression hardened. "Watch your tone, young lady. I will not tolerate disrespect." The room went silent. My own heartbeat was the only sound. That was the night I realized I wasn't part of this family anymore. I was just the easiest person to blame. And as I stood there, humiliated and trembling, Lydia smiled slightly and whispered, "Sweetheart, in this house, respect is earned, not inherited." I didn't answer. I just walked away, knowing deep down that the next time they saw me, I wouldn't be begging for respect. I'd be taking it back. Disrespect has a sound. It's quiet at first, like a door closing softly when you're not invited in. But soon, it becomes laughter that stops when you enter the room. Whispers that die the moment you turn around. Looks that slice through you sharper than words ever could. Weeks passed after Noah took over the boutique, and everything changed, not just in business, but at home. The warmth I once tried to protect was gone. I became invisible, a ghost haunting the corners of my own family. It started small. Lydia stopped setting a plate for me at breakfast. "Oh, I thought you were eating out," she'd say with a delicate shrug. Noah used my old office at the boutique, redecorating it like I never existed. And Father, he avoided my eyes. When I entered a room, he suddenly had a phone call or an errand. But the cruelty didn't stay private for long. Lydia made sure of that. One afternoon, at Grandma Eleanor's house, we were hosting relatives for her birthday. The air smelled of lemon cake and fresh flowers, but beneath it all, tension hung like dust in sunlight. I handed Grandma a small photo frame I'd saved for months to buy, a picture of her with Grandpa. She smiled faintly, touched. "You always remember the little things, Elena." Before I could answer, Lydia stepped in, her tone sweet but sharp. "That's lovely, dear. Though next time, perhaps something more substantial. We don't want people thinking the Marsh family has lost its generosity." The relatives laughed softly. I felt my throat tighten. "It's not about the cost," I said, barely above a whisper. "It's about meaning." Noah smirked. "Meaning doesn't pay bills, sis." Father didn't stop them. He just kept eating, pretending not to hear. Later, as guests mingled, I overheard Aunt Grace whisper, "Poor girl. She should be grateful Lydia still lets her stay in the house." My blood ran cold. "Let me stay?" That night, in the privacy of my room, I broke for the first time. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silent tears on a pillow that never talked back. I kept thinking about Mother, the woman Lydia replaced, the woman whose voice I barely remembered. Would she have told me to fight back? Or to stay quiet, like Father always demanded? But the breaking point came 2 weeks later, at a charity gala hosted by my father's company. Everyone important was there, clients, politicians, socialites. I was asked to help at the registration table while Lydia and Noah stood beside Father in the spotlight, posing for photos. When I approached the main table, a woman asked, "And you are?" Before I could answer, Lydia smiled. "She's just helping out tonight. Family support, you know?" I froze. "Just helping out." Noah added, "She's good at paperwork, not much else." Laughter. A few polite chuckles. I forced a smile. "Glad to be useful," I said softly, though my hands trembled behind the clipboard. I spent the rest of that night standing near the exit, watching them shine under the chandelier, my father's perfect family. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I no longer wanted to belong. I wanted justice. After the event, I went back to the boutique late at night. The place was dark except for the faint glow of the computer screen Noah had left on. I hesitated, then sat down, my heart pounding. As I clicked through the files, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Transaction records under Lydia's name, marked archived, transferred to offshore accounts. My fingers went cold. Each file was proof, undeniable, time-stamped, traceable. But then I heard footsteps behind me. A soft voice said, "You shouldn't be here, Elena." It was Noah. He was holding a glass of wine and smiling, that same smug smile that used to make me flinch. "I was just checking something," I replied, steadying my voice. He leaned closer. "You're making a mistake. You think you can expose us? No one will believe you. They already think you're unstable." I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to look away. Maybe. But truth has a way of surviving, even in the dark. He chuckled and walked off, muttering, "Not if the light never reaches it." When he left, I copied every file onto a flash drive and slipped it into my pocket. My hands were shaking, but my heart felt alive for the first time in months. That night, as I drove home under the cold rain, I looked in the rearview mirror and whispered, "You wanted silence, Lydia. You're about to hear my voice." There's a kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it crushes. The kind that fills your chest until breathing feels like punishment. That's the silence that lived in our house after I found the files. For days, I pretended not to know. I smiled when Lydia walked past me, laughed politely at Noah's jokes, and nodded when father gave his usual speeches about family values. But inside, I was unraveling, quietly, dangerously. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. Then came the night of the storm. The rain had been falling for hours, lightning flashing across the windows as if heaven itself wanted to watch what was about to happen. Lydia called for a family meeting. Her tone was too calm, too rehearsed. Father sat at the head of the table, expression cold and distant. Noah leaned against the fireplace, pretending to be bored. "Elena," Lydia began, "this isn't easy for any of us. But certain matters have come to our attention." My heart pounded. They know I found it, I thought. She slid a file across the table, my name printed on the front. "These are financial reports showing multiple errors, funds missing, accounts closed without authorization." "It's serious, dear." I froze. That was the same file I had corrected weeks ago. I looked closer. My handwriting was there, but so were pages I'd never written. Someone had altered them. "That's not real," I said, my voice trembling. "Someone changed the records." Noah laughed softly. "So now the system's lying too?" I turned to father. "Dad, please. You know I would never." "Enough," he snapped. "Do you think I enjoy this? You've embarrassed me long enough." I could barely breathe. "Embarrassed you? By working? By trying to save what you ignored?" His voice thundered over mine. "By stealing from your family." The word stealing echoed in my skull like a gunshot. Lydia sighed dramatically. "Richard, maybe we shouldn't be harsh. She's been under pressure." "Don't defend her," he barked. "From this day forward, Elena, you're no longer part of the Marsh business. Or the inheritance." I felt my body go cold. "You're disowning me?" He didn't look at me when he answered. "I'm protecting our family's reputation. You'll leave by the end of the week." The room blurred. The faces around me, the ones I had loved, served, endured, all looked away. Not one word of defense. Not even from Grandma Eleanor, who sat silently, her hands trembling. I stumbled back, choking on my own disbelief. "You're all blind," I whispered. "She's using you." Lydia took the money, not me. Lydia pressed a hand to her heart, her eyes glassy with fake pain. "Oh, sweetheart, blaming others won't fix your mistakes." Noah smirked. Maybe she should get help. Something inside me broke then, clean, final. I didn't cry. I just stood there, drenched in betrayal, and whispered, "You'll regret this. All of you." Then I walked out. The storm outside swallowed me whole. I didn't take anything but a small suitcase and the flash drive in my coat pocket. Rain soaked through my clothes, thunder roaring above like applause for my downfall. I walked for blocks before collapsing under a streetlight, the world spinning around me. I was drenched, shaking, and completely alone. I called Daniel, my ex-fiancé. Maybe some part of me hoped he'd still care. He answered on the third ring. "Daniel, it's me," I said, voice breaking. They kicked me out." Lydia framed me. He sighed. "Elena, maybe it's best to move on. You know how your father feels about." "About what?" "About being lied to?" "I can't get involved," he said softly. "I'm sorry." The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the flashing lights of passing cars, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. My whole world, gone in one night. The home I built my identity around had spit me out like poison. For days, I stayed in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, surviving on instant coffee and old memories. I kept replaying Father's words, "You're no longer part of this family." They echoed even in sleep. But pain, when left to simmer, turns into something else. Something colder, sharper. One evening, as I scrolled through the files again, I noticed a new detail I had missed before. Lydia's signature wasn't just on the offshore transfers. It was also on legal documents prepared for property transfers signed under my name. Forgery. It hit me like a revelation. They hadn't just ruined my name. They had used it. That's when the anger started to replace the grief. I stopped crying. I started thinking, if Lydia could build lies in silence, then I could destroy them in daylight. I printed every file, marked every signature, and began organizing the evidence. I wasn't ready to fight them yet, but I was no longer the weak daughter begging for approval. The next morning, I stood at the motel window, watching the sunrise over the city. The world looked different now, colder, yes, but clearer. I whispered to my reflection, "You wanted me gone, Lydia."
Fine.
"But I'm coming back, and I'm bringing the truth with me." For the first week, I let myself be small. I ate cheap food, slept in a motel bed that smelled like other people's lives, and let the phone ring out unanswered. It should have been the end of me. Instead, it became the place I learned to breathe again, quietly, with purpose. Maya was the first to arrive without judgment. "You look like someone who's been through a storm," she said, sitting beside me on the motel bed, thumbs worrying a coffee cup. "So don't waste the thunder." "I don't know how to fight them," I admitted. "I only know how to survive." "You survived this far. That's stronger than you think," she replied.
We started small and honest.
I organized the files I'd copied, each transfer, each forged signature, timestamps, emails. I learned to read the language of ledgers the way I'd learned to read a family dinner, the quiet places between lines where intent lived. Maya called an old friend, Rosa, a forensic accountant who owed her a favor. Rosa saw the signatures and blinked once. "This is not sloppy forgery," she said. "This is deliberate. Someone wanted it to look like you." We found other allies by accident. A disgruntled supplier who'd been cut off, a receptionist at my father's firm who remembered a late-night email sent from Lydia's account. People who had been ignored suddenly had reasons to be seen. I paid them back with the only thing I could spare, my truth, carefully handed over. I also learned to speak like a woman who would not be swallowed by shame. I practiced statements in front of a mirror. I did not steal. I was framed. The words felt strange at first, then solid. My voice stopped trembling. Legally, I was cautious. Rosa recommended a lawyer who specialized in family business fraud, not the kind that made headlines for spectacle, but the kind that quietly dismantled lies. "We'll need a paper trail," he told me, tapping the flash drive. "You have enough to start a subpoena. But this won't be like screaming in a dining room. This will be surgical." His calm steadied me. Emotionally, I trained myself to be patient and brutal at once. I worked out until my body felt like iron, not brittle glass. I read through company statements until I could spot an anomaly, like a scar. I wrote down every conversation, every laugh that had cut me. Each note became an engine, small, cold, precise. But the plan wasn't just legal. Lydia thrived on spectacle. She wore pity like armor. I needed to turn her stage into her downfall. So we mapped the calendar, fundraisers, galas, shareholder meetings, every public place she used to polish the family's image. We chose a night she'd be comfortable in the light. There was risk in every step.
Subpoenas took time.
Evidence could be suppressed. A powerful family could still sway a jury or buy silence. Daniel might testify against me. Father might refuse to look at the truth. I thought about giving up, about burning the flash drive and walking away. But each time I wavered, I remembered how my father had pointed at me with shame. I tasted that humiliation again and turned it into resolve. Maya's hand closed over mine one night as we reviewed the documents. "This will expose them," she said. "Be ready for the blowback." "I'm ready," I replied, and for the first time it wasn't a lie. It was a decision. We built contingency plans, copies of evidence hidden with trusted friends, recordings of key conversations, a list of witnesses who would corroborate the transfers. We even set a quiet channel to leak a false lead if Lydia tried to move money at the last minute. Dangerous moves. Tactical deception. I felt like someone learning to be dangerous for the right reasons. On the evening we chose, the city would gather in one room to praise the Marsh name, the very image they'd used to bury me. Tomorrow, they would all be watching each other for smiles. Tomorrow, I would arrive with the truth in my pocket. I lay awake that night listening to the motel's humming air conditioner and thinking of the dining room, of my father's face lit by the chandelier when he accused me. My fear had been replaced by a focused hunger I'd never known. They had taken my home and my name. Now I was taking back their certainty. The night of reckoning came dressed in gold. Lydia's charity gala, the Marsh Legacy Dinner, was the perfect stage for a family that lived on appearances. The hall glittered with chandeliers and laughter. Waiters moved like shadows, carrying trays of champagne and false smiles. And I walked in, uninvited. Every head turned. The whispers began instantly. I could feel their stares crawling at my back. Lydia froze mid-conversation, her glass halfway to her lips. Father looked pale, caught between shock and fury. "Elena," he said sharply, stepping forward. "You shouldn't be here." I smiled, calm, cold, unrecognizable even to myself. "Relax, Father. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to return what was stolen." The crowd went silent. Somewhere, the music faded. Lydia set her glass down with trembling fingers, her voice sweet but tight. "This isn't the place for your emotional outbursts, dear." "Oh, I agree," I said. "That's why I brought evidence instead." I stepped onto the small stage near the projector, the same one where Lydia had planned to play her tribute video about family legacy. Maya, from the back of the hall, gave me a subtle nod. I inserted the flash drive into the laptop. The projector flickered to life, not with Lydia's smiling photos, but with spreadsheets, bank logs, signatures. "Let me introduce you," I said, my voice steady, echoing across the room, "to the real Marsh legacy. Lies, theft, and betrayal." Gasps rippled through the crowd. On the screen, highlighted transactions connected the boutique's missing funds to LM Consulting and offshore accounts in Lydia's name. Noah lunged forward. "Turn that off." I turned to him. "Why, Noah? Afraid the numbers might match your accounts too? Or should we talk about the fake invoices you approved?" The color drained from his face. Lydia's composure cracked. "You forged this," she hissed. "You're sick, Elena. You need help." I laughed, a sound that came out more like a shiver. "You taught me that the truth doesn't need permission. It just needs a voice." The crowd murmured louder. Business partners, friends, even reporters began snapping photos. Father stood frozen, eyes darting between the screen and Lydia. "Tell them," I said, stepping closer. "Tell them how you framed me. Tell them how you let your wife destroy your daughter's name to protect her theft."
He didn't speak.
He just looked at Lydia, waiting for her to fix it like she always did. But this time she couldn't. The projector now displayed her signature next to mine. One real, one forged. Grandma Eleanor rose slowly from her seat, her voice trembling but fierce. "Enough of this performance, Lydia. I know my granddaughter's handwriting. I warned you long ago. Lies rot everything they touch." The hall erupted in whispers and gasps. Lydia stumbled backward, tears finally spilling, not from guilt, but from the shock of exposure. "Richard, please," she whispered. "Say something." Father's voice broke when he finally spoke. "Is it true?" Her silence was her answer. The reporters' flashes turned white-hot. Guests began leaving, some shaking their heads, others whispering scandal. Noah shoved past me in a fury, shouting, "You ruined us." I met his eyes.
"No."
"You did that yourselves." Lydia collapsed into a chair, mascara running. Father stared at me, tears forming where pride used to live. "Elena." I stepped back. "Don't. You believed everyone but me. That's all there is to say." The microphone hummed softly as I looked around the hall, at the same people who once gossiped about me, who'd looked away when I fell. For years, I stayed silent because I thought respect meant obedience. But respect without truth is slavery. I'm done being your shadow. And with that, I unplugged the projector. The screen went black, leaving only their stunned faces reflected in the void. I walked past Lydia, past Father, past the family that had buried me alive. Each step felt lighter, freer, sharper. I wasn't trembling anymore. The shame was gone, the silence broken. As I reached the exit, the sound of applause came from behind me, hesitant at first, then steady.
It was Grandma.
"That's my granddaughter," she said firmly. The hall went quiet again, but it didn't matter. My truth had already filled every corner. I turned one last time and said quietly, "You took everything from me. Now live with what's left." Then I walked out into the night, the cold air washing over me like justice itself. The next morning, the headlines told a story I never had to repeat. Marsh family scandal. Stepmother and son under investigation for fraud. The photos were everywhere. Lydia's tear-streaked face, Noah shoving cameras aside, and father standing alone in the background, eyes hollow. For once, my name wasn't followed by accusation. It was followed by truth. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. Justice, when it finally comes, isn't loud. It's quiet, almost solemn. Like the end of a storm that took too long to pass. I moved into a small apartment above a florist shop downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My peace built from ashes. The first night there, I slept without fear for the first time in years. No eyes watching me, no whispers waiting in the walls. Just the hum of the city outside and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. Father called me a week later. His voice sounded older, thinner. "Elena," he said, pausing between every word, "I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know. I see it now. I see what I let them do." I closed my eyes, letting his words sit in the silence. "You didn't let them, Dad," I said softly. "You helped them." He didn't argue. He just exhaled, the sound of a man realizing too late that respect built on fear is worth nothing. Lydia and Noah's names disappeared from society pages soon after. The company went under investigation. Assets frozen, their allies vanishing overnight. Grandma Eleanor sent me a letter, written in shaky handwriting. "Proud of your courage. You brought back our family's honor, not with wealth, but with truth." Sometimes I still walk past the old Marsh mansion. The windows are dark now, curtains drawn, the gates rusting. It used to intimidate me, that house, that family, that name. Now it's just a memory, a monument to what happens when pride replaces love. Maya visits often, bringing coffee and a laugh when I need it most. She still teases me. "You know, you could have just left quietly." I smile at that. Quiet is what made me invisible. Speaking is what made me free. There's a strange peace in knowing I didn't destroy them. Truth did. All I did was stop hiding. One evening, as the sun set through my window, I stood by the mirror. The same mirror I once practiced defending myself in. I didn't see a broken woman anymore. I saw someone reborn through pain, sharpened by betrayal, but softened by dignity. I whispered to my reflection, words I now believe with every heartbeat. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you reclaim when the world forgets who you are. That was my closure. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just peace. The kind that comes when you no longer need anyone's approval to exist. I rebuilt the boutique under a new name, Eleanor's Grace, after my grandmother. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about meaning. Every customer who walked in saw the sign that hung above the counter. Honesty is the highest form of luxury. Sometimes, young women come in, quiet and unsure, and tell me their stories of families who silenced them, partners who doubted them. I listen the way no one listened to me. And when they leave, I remind them, your voice is not a weakness. It's your inheritance. The past still visits sometimes, in dreams, in headlines, in memories that sting before they fade. But I no longer run from it. It's proof that I survived something meant to erase me.